What's going on, you guys? Welcome to the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with Kevin Kepple. If you're looking to create more in your life, and if you want more of anything, it's not about doing more, it's about being more. So I'm excited you're here, and I'll see you guys on the inside. They'll skip 4 sometimes. Yeah, they just did. So you, like me, you're a big proponent of managing our energy. And I think that's definitely one of the common denominators between all the successful people that I've worked with is they're really good at managing their time and their energy. And so let's start with that. You know, what kind of things do you do to manage your energy or help the people you work with just get better at owning their energy?
You know, I think probably one of the biggest things about energy is just being aware of it, right? So many people aren't aware of the energy that they are putting out into the world. You know, I love to give the example. Have you ever walked into a room and you walk up to someone and you just go, ooh? Have you ever done that?
Yeah. Yes.
So that
hopefully y'all are watching on video. That was fun.
I know you kind of need the visual, right? But really that is someone presenting with an energy that doesn't mix with your own, right? And they may not even be aware of it. And so when I'm teaching people about networking, for example, I'm always like, check your energy before you walk through that door, because that's going to form the first impression that people have about you. So I know you're going to ask me about a favorite book later, but I want to talk about a book that really, two things really. A book that changed my life when it comes to energy, but then also coaching school, which was the coaching school that I went to was IPEC. Have you heard of IPEC?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's all about the energy leadership. And I mean, going through this school absolutely changed who I am at the core, because it taught me how, you know, I get to choose every choice I make. I co-create my own reality because I'm choosing the energy that I show up with. I'm choosing how I react to the way the world presents to me, right? So do I show up as a victim? If I'm showing up as a victim, then my brain is going to tell me, well, you're a victim. So here's all the ways I'm going to prove to you that you are a victim. And that's all I'm going to see. It's very tunnel vision, right? But if I'm presenting as what we call a level 3, which is what we call our Band-Aid level. So victim is your lowest energy level. It puts out the lowest frequency. Okay. Next is anger. And you would think maybe anger would be the lowest, but it's actually not, because at least when you're angry, you're kind of fighting for yourself a little bit. Whereas a victim, you're not fighting anymore. Everything's happening to you, not for you. But as we move up and we start moving into that more anabolic energy, which is life sustaining, where the levels 1 and 2, which are your victim and your anger levels, those are life destructive. Those are catabolic energies. Okay. And so it's very much, as you start moving up, you get to manage that energy. You get to choose every morning, Kevin, when I do my journaling, which is very, very important. I highly encourage everyone to have what I call a miracle morning, which is also based off a book. But I write down my energy level. And if I don't like where I'm at, I get to choose to change it. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't get to choose how I feel. Yeah, you do. You absolutely do get to choose how to feel. Now, if you need to feel hurt or sad, that's okay. But you need to own that that is your choice. And so the other book that I wanted to introduce is called Power versus Force. And this is, have you read the book? I see you shaking your head. And I think this is the most comprehensive study that was done on energy as it relates to emotions, right? And these are measurable. There's been many studies, and Dr. David Hawkins, he did this study over almost 30 years, and he can assign energy to a book. You know, what is its energy rating? And it's just, and I believe he said the Bible, because he does a scale of 0 to 1,000, where IPEC does levels 1 through 7. But what's so interesting, 2 completely independent studies on energy correlate almost exactly. So he does like 0 to 100, which is basically our level 1, which is the victim level. And then he'll do 200 to 300, which is angry. But he goes where we stop at level 7, because we believe after level 7, everything's Buddha, right? It's just it's transcendence. We can't live at level 7 for extended levels of time, but we can reach that through, for example, meditation, through quiet time, through breathing exercises, through prayer. That's when we can hit that level 7. But unless we are some Buddha on a mountaintop, we can't stay there all the time, but we can touch it. Okay. Now, Dr. Hawkins, when he goes from 700 to 1,000, he makes very incremental changes. They're or not incremental, but large changes. Like he'll go from 700 to 800, 800 to 950, where in the beginning he'll go from like 0 to 25, 25 to 40, for example. So that's why I still say that those two studies correlate almost exactly, because once you reach level 7, there's very little difference up to 1,000.
So with regards to the two different assessments, or whatever you would call it. So I know like courage is the first level of power on David Hawkins' scale, and everything below that is force. And at the bottom, like you're talking about victim, that's like apathy and shame, and just like all these places like absolutely like no energy. And so what correlates on the IPEC scale with kind of that first step into power, like where courage is at 200 for David Hawkins?
So that is actually our level 3. Then that's what I call the Band-Aid level, because it's a mixture. You're starting to move into those more anabolic, those more life-sustaining. That's where you start releasing the endorphins that optimize your systems, where the lower levels actually release endorphins that strain your system, right?
Yeah.
That's where you're releasing the cortisol, for example. It's your fight or flight areas.
Yeah.
So level 3 would be where you start to gear shift into those more anabolic levels.
Yeah, very cool. And that's fascinating. I love Power versus Force and Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender, his like follow-up book to that, so to speak.
Yes.
Like and like I always warn people whenever they're going to read David Hawkins, I'm like, all right, he's a PhD and an MD, so he likes words a lot. So there's a lot of words in here, but it's really good,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah,
definitely got.
I tell people it's not an easy read. You have to be dedicated to read the first one. Now, Letting Go is more, I think, is an easier read because it's more of a narrative as opposed to a study.
Yeah, it
which the
definitely tells
first
a
book,
better story in
yeah.
there. Power versus Force I mean, it reads like a textbook, but it's fascinating stuff, and it's so powerful. And I use a lot of that language. I was actually in the group coaching that I offer on Wednesdays. I was talking about Power versus Force yesterday. I mean, I talk about it all the time because it's like we're either creating from love or we're reacting from fear. And creating from love is power. Reacting from fear is, that's force. And force always has counterforce, right? Like if I force you to do something, the counterforce is you probably like don't want to be around me again or whatever. And I love the tool that Gallup has, Strength Finders, and I've been teaching with that tool for years. And there's a concept called the balcony and the basement with that. Like the balcony is when I'm creating from love, the basement's when I'm reacting from fear. And I can use power versus force with that. And so it's a really nice way to offer people more perspectives into when they start giving their power away, because the idea, right? I can't create or destroy power. I can't create or destroy energy, right? I can only direct it in new ways. And, it just goes the way it's directed. And so if I have this inverted, forceful power, then literally negotiating against myself for what I actually want. And I think it's such a cool thing that you guys are doing that with IPEC too. I'm really fascinated with that. So what types of things do you do to really help people understand, or for yourself even generate, more energies that are conducive to the results you want to create, as opposed to, these like resistance generating things?
Well, I love that you brought up Strengths Finders, because I think that is such an important tool to use, especially when you're coaching, to be aware not only of your own strengths, but other people's strengths. So I like to learn, and I know you and I had a fascinating conversation about our strengths, and I was just like, whoa, it's like you've known me my whole life, once I shared my strengths with you. But it was, so that's one place that I like to start. Really, where I start with people, and I'll give you an example of one of my clients that I've been working with for about 6 months, maybe 7 months now. And it was so interesting because when I first met this young man, he was very despondent, very victim attitude. He had been laid off from his job. And he just thought and he was having a hard time getting employment again. And he was, and let me tell you, he's not found employment yet. And I've been working with him for 6 months. And the reason is he's making a complete pivot in his career to a completely new career. And so we're working on that, trying to help him pivot, because that's really what he wants to do. And that's where he finds his power. And when I first started working with him, he was very despondent. And he actually won one of my journals, Awaken Your Potential. And so we started working through that. And just really the first thing that I have them do is start having quiet time in the morning. Start really getting to know yourself, becoming self-aware, and thinking about, think about how you feel, because these are the things I write down every morning. How do I feel? What was my meditation? What did I learn through that? That could be prayer, that could be silence, time. It could be anything that quiets your mind, right? Breathing exercises. I write down my intention for the day because I want to train my reticular activation system to do what I want it to do, right? I'm in control. And then I write down my energy level. And so I think when, and of course I explain the different energy levels to him. As we started going through that and as we were talking, he would say, well, I have to. I'm like, no, you get to. I should. No, you want to. Just changing and reframing some of that language, and really thinking about where you are energetically at any given moment. And is that where you want to be? And once you teach someone that they have that control and teach them how to navigate through the different levels, it starts to change. And that's what I saw happen with this young man. And he started blossoming. He started seeing hope. And anytime he's down, I'll see him pop up on my calendar, and he's just like, just need a little pep talk. And I'm like, let's go, but energetically he has shifted. And so now when he goes to that interview, which he had one last week, he shows up as a different person. When he walks in, that interviewer's not going, ugh, they're going, I need to know this person a little bit more. Yeah. So that's where we start, is just with the awareness, learning about the different levels and how to navigate and shift through them.
Yeah, that's so powerful, because like we're either giving energy or we're sucking energy out of others, one of the two. And I definitely don't want to take anything away from other people. And like, that's one of the really cool gifts that Strength Finders offers. It's like our natural sources of energy, like competition's your number one strength, right? And like when you're in this place of like collaboration, like is everything you just shared, right? It's like us co-creating together, and we can all, win. And competition in the basement, which I also have competition pretty high. It's like, just see me in my 20s, basically. It's all about me winning. And if I didn't think I could be the best, like I wouldn't even try it. And that's such a forceful way to move through the world, because I'm definitely not going to be the best at everything. And I'm going to give away so much opportunity to really leverage the genius of other people if that's my approach. I wanted to go back to the reticular activating system that you mentioned real quick, because that's a fancy word, but I want to make sure everybody kind of caught that, because that's like the red Honda Civic theory, right? Like, whatever is like our focus is what we see more of. Like if you buy a new red Honda Civic, suddenly on the road, you notice everybody else has a red Honda Civic. You're like, whoa, did everybody already have these, or are these like brand new? And it's like the simple thought that we get what we're looking for. So it's really important that I'm looking for what I actually do want. So what types of things do you do to help yourself or the people you work with really, create that focus on what they actually do want?
Well, I'll tell you what I do. And that goes back to my morning routine. So the first thing I do is I set my intention. Okay. And let's talk about the reticular activation system. Let's call it the RAS, so I don't have to say that big long word anymore. That's what it's referred to. So the RAS, we are bombarded with, I believe the statistic is about 11 million bits of information per second. And we can only process like, I want to say it's 300 to 400 bits per second. So how does our brain know what to focus on? We tell it. We absolutely tell it. And that's why if we're telling it we're a victim, it's going to say, okay, here's how you're a victim, here's how you're a victim, here's how you're a victim. But if you set your intention, it's like having an executive assistant in your head, right? And especially when you write it down, because now we're double encoding. So you get to tell your RAS what it is you want to see. Everything else gets filtered out. I have people tell me all the time, they're like, and I'll give you an example of where I use this, but I use it all the time. They're like, you're so lucky, Casey. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm very intentional. And I'm very careful. Did your grandmother or anybody ever tell you garbage in, garbage out?
I don't know if it was my grandmother, but I've definitely heard that.
It's so true, right? So I'm very careful about what I allow into my subconscious, because your subconscious is going to be working in the background on whatever it is you told it you wanted to focus on, whether it's that red Honda Civic or whatever it is. That's what it's going to focus on. So whenever I was working on my journal, I needed a illustrator for my graphics. And I needed one that was kind of woo-woo, because I didn't want traditional graphics. I really wanted my graphics to reach out and speak to the person that was holding the journal. And I was talking to, and I don't know what you call it, but one of my coaches calls it putting it out in the universe. That means put your focus on it, right? Yeah. And I was like, how am I going to find this person? And my coach said, Casey, you know exactly what to do. Put it out to the universe. I was like, of course, exactly. I did that. And through a series of events, and I will tell you how it happened. So I belonged to a networking group where I met a gentleman who started doing videos on LinkedIn, and they were really great sales videos. So I was following him. Well, one day I saw that a lady that used to work at the studio where I record my podcast commented. And so he's in Phoenix, she's here in Dallas with me. And I hadn't talked to her in a couple of years because she'd left the studio. And I was like, Anna, how do you know Nick? And she was like, I just tripped across his videos one day and they were great. So I started following him. I was like, okay. I was like, we need to catch up. And so we start to talk and she goes, how can I help you? And I said, well, you know what? I'm looking for kind of a woo-woo graphic artist. And she's like, my best friend is just that. And I was like, are you kidding? This was 1 month after I started intentionally looking and asking and putting it out to the universe that I found my graphic artist.
Yeah, and it seems so simple. Like once it comes together, you're like, oh yeah, cool. But if you didn't put it out there, like you're not looking for it, it makes it hard to find.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're looking for, it's like I don't jump in the car and just start driving to somewhere I've never been without firing up the GPS, right?
Oh, that's such a good analogy. I love that.
So talk to us about your journal. Go a
Ooh.
little deeper on that for me.
You know, this has been a passion project, a project of love for me because I am on a mission to awaken the world. And when I say awaken the world, I want to help people find that awareness that we've been talking about so that they can live their life intentionally. So many people go, just go with the flow and don't really self-direct or choose. They just let things happen to them, right? And we don't have to live that way. And it's so much better when we don't. And the joy that I have found since discovering my inner landscape and learning that, when I can control my inner landscape, the outer landscape's easy, right? I can control this and just really getting in touch with yourself. So I started journaling heavy journaling about 5 years ago. And I did that because I read a book. Pretty much everything I do is because I read a book. And really, this journal is a culmination of the books that I've read: Power versus Force, Atomic Habits, all of those great, great books. But I was carrying around like 4 or 5 different journals, and it was getting to be a lot, And so I was like, I want one journal that has everything in it. And I went to the market, and I couldn't find it. And then I said out loud one day to my now business partner, I was like, maybe I should just create a journal. And she's like, you're going to do it. It was just like that. I was like, I was kind of kidding, and she was like, no, you're going to do it. And so we created Awaken Your Potential. It's a very holistic journal. It has 6 different sections with a hidden section in it. So mindset, affirmations, efficiency, that's where Atomic Habits comes in, goal setting, productivity, that's your daily pages. And the final section is finance. But I told you there's a hidden section, right? So on the daily pages, there's a health section. How did you sleep last night? How much water did you drink? How many steps did you take to really, because self-care or self-optimization, as I like to call it, which I totally stole from someone else, not going to lie, but it makes sense. It's so important because if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of others, right? And I'm seeing that right now in a family situation. We've got to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. But also at the end of the week, you have your weekly review and your weekly preview. But I put something in there that I thought was just genius. I'm so stinking proud of myself for this. Meal planning.
Yeah.
With a grocery list that you can tear out.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that's a really great point because if you don't have your health, then you're severely handicapping yourself because you're not going to feel as good. And if you don't feel good, you're not able to perform at the levels that you're capable of, period.
Yeah.
And man, it just makes everything harder. And it's just like anything else. I need an intention, right? Of like how I'm going to show up for myself. And that's a massive form of self-care. And self-care is so important for a variety of reasons, but one, it's like self-love because you're, proving yourself that you love yourself. You're pouring more love into yourself, and then you have more love to share. Like I can't give what I don't have. If I don't have any love inside me, there's none to share with Casey or whoever else I interact with. And so that's pretty phenomenal. What types of, got any cool success stories or feedback from the journal that you could share with us?
Yeah, I actually have gotten several testimonials. People that I just had one of my customers. So we launched this September 1 of this year, but we actually have been working on it for 3 years, and we've done several runs, and so we've had beta testers along the way. And one of my beta testers, when the latest round came out, and she finally got her, she's like, "Oh my god." She's like, I needed this so bad. I have missed having this structure, waiting for the journals to come out for real, right? But just a lot of people are just really learning, because one of the thing activities that I have you do is, number one, list out your core values, because those are really, really important to know how you frame decisions on a daily basis. But the second part of that is I also have you list out your internal rules. What do you do on a daily basis? How do you make decisions? And once you list those out and you get really clear on your core values and your internal rules, it becomes very easy to be authentic at all times, because you're living with those beliefs, right? And it's okay if those beliefs aren't the same as what you were raised with.
Yeah,
That's really
absolutely.
important.
Yeah, that's like from the big leap, right? That's like the upper limit problem right there. It's like, people like where I come from don't do this, so I'm gonna do this, even if it's a negative. But I think that's I think that's great that you're able to impact people with something like that. So people can find it on Amazon.
You can, but it is really hard to find on Amazon for some reason. And let me tell you, okay, let me show you real quick. So this is the journal, just so you know what you're looking for. And I also have a more neutral color journal
For the dudes.
for the
But
dudes. That's
it's
exactly what it
Awaken
was.
Your Potential, by the way, you guys. I don't know if we mentioned the name, but
Yeah, awaken your potential. And here is another what I love. So our community is called Destination Awaken. And so I made this really easy, because remember, my mission is to awaken the world, right? You can go to destinationawaken.world to find the journal.
that's easy enough. I
Isn't that
love that.
fun?
What a great URL. So give everybody your definition of awaken. What do you mean when you're saying that? Just so we're all on the same page.
When I say awaken, I mean that you have learned who you are at the core. For example, your core values, your internal rules. You have really identified what makes you tick, but you've also learned to navigate those energy levels. And you've learned that meditation, that quiet time, that connecting to whoever your higher power is on a regular basis, and gaining information and strength from that connection. And then sharing that with the world.
That right there is so powerful. Like, oh my gosh, because like when you're owning your, authentic self, that's where your genius lives. And like you're never gonna win trying to be like somebody else.
Yes.
But that causes you to be the competitive, like when I'm trying to be like somebody else. And if I'm doing that, I'm pandering to the middle. I'm pandering to average. And if I want to be above average, I have to treat myself above average. And the way I do that is by understanding what my most authentic self looks like and how I can use that to create value for other people. And like that, it's so simple. It doesn't mean easy, of course, right? But like that right there. And it's so cool because nobody will ever beat you at being you. Like you've got the market cornered on that. Nobody's ever seen anything like you before. And that requires you to be love, which is creativity. Because when I'm creating, I'm bringing something new into the world that's never existed before.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, though, where I see people getting tripped up with this, because they're creating something new into the world, people often judge what they don't understand. And so they judge this new version of this new thing you're bringing in because they just don't understand it. It doesn't mean they're bad people or you're wrong. It just means they don't understand it yet. And that's okay. Like, it's totally cool. But like, you've got to go to the edges of you if you truly want to make the impact you're capable of making.
I love what you just said there too about the other people judging you, because that is probably one of the greatest pieces of awakening, is letting go of caring what other people think about you.
Yes.
It's so important. One of my other coaches told me, it's none of my business what other people think about me. And once I embrace that and quit trying to control other people's perceptions of me, because I'm not going to be able to do it, it's exhausting, right? I just go out there and I be me. I be my true, authentic self. Doesn't resonate with everybody. But a lot of times when people will say, something bad about you or judge you, it's because they're scared to do it themselves and they're jealous. So, for example, I'm sure you got some flack when you started your podcast. People are like, why are you going to do that? People are going to judge you. They're going to make fun of you. And I got the same thing. They're like, and there's haters out there, and the haters are usually the ones that won't do anything.
Yeah, but you know what? The good news is, and I love, like, I don't have to believe everything I think. It's something that I'm, telling myself all the time, right? Like, and just because I had a thought doesn't make it true, or just because somebody else had a thought doesn't make it true. And when I can really understand that 100% of my experience of life is created from inside my mind, like, that's really good news. That doesn't mean I can, like, create a car in my front yard by just thinking about it, but it means I get to choose how I think and therefore how I feel about situations, about myself, about the world in general. And Henry David Thoreau is like the best quote. He said, "It's not what you look at that matters; it's what you see that makes all the difference." And
So
man, like, when I choose to, see love, then I look through that lens. It doesn't mean I'm sliding down rainbows every day on the way to work at the Unicorn Ranch, but you know what? Things usually work out a lot better when I'm coming at the world from a place of love as opposed to fear. And, fear wears a lot of hats, like you were mentioning earlier. Fear can be anger, guilt, shame, apathy, whatever. But man, mastering the art of choosing love over fear, like, that's the one skill we all can develop, and really just it can deliver these exponential returns to you.
absolutely. And I think that just in a simple little nutshell says it all. Choosing love over fear. And
Yeah.
and when I tell people that, I want to help you co-create your reality with every choice you make, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You get to choose how you perceive your reality. You can choose to see it through little bitty lenses and miss all these opportunities out here, or you can choose to be open to those opportunities. And just like you said, no, you can't think about a car in your front yard and it's going to be there, but you can think, hey, my goal is to own that car, and your brain is going to start looking for all those avenues to make that happen for you.
Yeah,
There's a lot
that's
of
the
choice.
RES,
Yeah.
right? The RES right there. It's like
Yeah.
you get what you're looking for, and so you might as well look for what you actually do want. And it's training, just like anything else. It's like the mental gym, and like, learning to think more powerfully is like how you can literally develop new neural pathways in your brain and promote neuroplasticity. And like that, if you're either growing or you're, degenerating, one of the two. There's no stay the same, right? If you choose to
Exactly.
stay the same, right, the world's going to revolve around you and continue to grow, just not revolve around you the way you want to. And you've mentioned like 5 books already, and you have input really high on Strength Finder, so I already knew you were like a big reader. But like all the leaders are readers, right? We've heard that before, and it's
Hmm.
like there's that great Mark Twain quote, like, if you can read but choose not to, you're making the choice to be illiterate. It's like, okay, like, why in the world would you make that choice? But if I can get somebody's genius distilled down into a couple hundred pages, like, why wouldn't I take that
Yeah.
opportunity to get into it? And so I guess I'd like to know, is there another favorite book that you love to read, recommend, or give away that you haven't shared yet?
Okay. Can I do two, please?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
they kind of go together. Okay. So the first book, and these are the ones I always, because I run a young executives program, and these are the two that I always recommend to my young executives because I think they're so powerful. The first one is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
Yeah.
And that one helps you set your day up for success. I started doing the Miracle Morning, well, about 5 years ago because that's what got me to journaling. And I treasure my Miracle Morning. If you try to call or text me during a certain time in the mornings, I don't answer because that is my time. That is my self optimization. And that's where I tend my inner landscape, so to speak. Okay. So that book will set your day up for success. The second book that I like to recommend is more of a life philosophy, and that's The Go Giver by Bob Berg and John David Mann. And I see you shaking your head, so I know
Yeah.
we're on the same page with these two
Yeah.
books.
Yeah. Those are great
But
books.
that's really, the Go Giver is kind of weaved in throughout the entire journal because we're setting ourselves up so that we can help others. And that's what this journal is about. It's setting you up for that self optimization, getting to know yourself, and then sharing that with others so that we can help awaken the world.
Ooh, powerful stuff. So, what is a question I could have asked that I didn't ask that you'd love to share about?
Um, you could ask me about the graphics in the journal because they're very unique.
Yeah, let's go there. Tell me all about it.
So if you'll remember, I told you I wanted somebody that was a little woo-woo, a little out there. And I found the lady, her name is Nicole. And it was so interesting because she turned out to be a color and symbol expert.
Ooh, cool.
And I'll show you one of the graphics here in just a second, but she was so amazing. I would sit there and talk about each of the different sections, and she carefully curated each of those graphics to evoke emotions around that section of the journal. So for example, mindset is the very first section for a very good reason, because mindset, if our mindset's not right, nothing else is going to work, right? And so here is the graphic. Can you see it?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's amazing. That's beautiful.
And so she, like I said, she's a symbol and color expert. And hopefully when you go through the journal and you're looking at these different sections, like it'll help optimize your experience as you go through that section. That was my goal.
Ooh, that picture was phenomenal. I'm excited to go through the rest of that. Okay, where can people go to learn more about you and connect with you? I know you mentioned destinationawaken.world. Anywhere else they can go?
I am heavy on LinkedIn. We do have communities on Instagram. I'm going to be completely transparent. That's not always me. So for Destination Awaken, but LinkedIn, you can find me. I pop up really easy, just putting my name in there. And I'm also on Facebook, but again, not as active there. LinkedIn is truly where to find me. You can also check out my website, which is CaseyHasten.com.
Awesome. Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and learn from you. And it's, it's been a lot of fun getting to know you. So thanks for taking the time to share with us today.
I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Alrighty, guys. We'll see y'all next time.
Alrighty, you guys. Thanks for making it through to the end of the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with us. Really grateful to have amazing listeners like you. Thank you guys again for listening. We love you, and we'll see you next time inside the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with Kevin Kepple.